Bus driver couldn't stay put when he saw the state of the boy in the back. The old bus driver kept looking in the mirror. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with one of the passengers. One little boy was crying and shivering in the back of the bus. Everyone seemed to ignore him but the driver. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to step in. What he did next left everyone without words. The driver was 52-year-old John Lunsford, a U.S. Army veteran who, at the time of meeting the crying boy, had been transporting children to school in Washington for 3 years. He loved his job because it was easy and he got to talk with people every day. Most times, nothing out of the ordinary happened on his routes. Until the crying boy showed up one day. John Lunsford was married to Debbie and the pair were grandparents already. He loved children and it was his biggest joy when he had his grandchildren visiting. The couple was a quiet bunch living in a modest old school home, enjoying their twilight years. They both kept working and John found no better way of being surrounded by children than driving a school bus. He always knew how to put a smile on their faces and tried to learn everyone by name. On a bitterly cold Thursday on December 26, John was driving a bus full of students around the school district just like on any other day. It was freezing cold outside and he could barely see the faces of the children as they were all covered in winter clothing. But one boy still managed to get the bus driver's attention. However, on that morning, he picked a regular young rider and the driver couldn't help but notice that the child was crying. The reason for the 6-year-old's tears was still a mystery, though. The driver kept driving while struggling to find a way to reach out to the kid and figure out what was going on. The bus driver saw in the mirror that someone was trying to get the attention of the crying boy. One older boy changed his seat and got closer. What was happening? Was the older boy at fault for making the little kid cry? Or was he just trying to help? The driver needed to know. John Lunsford drove the bus during working hours but volunteered most of his free time. He loved helping people and he was well respected in his community. John was always ready to help anyone in need. He was used to dealing with many difficult cases over the years. Still, nothing could prepare him for what he encountered that cold winter morning. John felt that he had to do something to help the child feel better. Indeed, John couldn't bear to see the boy suffering. He just wanted to make things right. John's instincts as a grandfather kicked in. No one wanted to see a child suffer like that. Something had to be done, and John was the one who would act that day. All this time, John kept his eyes on the older boy who sat near the crying child. He wanted to make sure that nothing shady was going on. Apparently, the older kid had the same intentions as John. He wanted to figure out if he could do anything to help the crying boy. Unfortunately, he failed in his attempt to console the crying passenger. It was all up to John now. The reason for the boy's tears was a heartbreaking one. But the caring bus driver knew exactly what to do to help the boy. What's more, this would lead him to assist others in similar conditions. But first, he had to take care of the boy. So John stopped the bus. Got up and walked slowly to where the crying boy was sitting. It was time to do something. The boy was in a dire situation. And the bus driver finally figured out what was going on with the crying boy. He was too cold. The 6-year-old's parents couldn't afford to properly dress him for wintertime, so he wasn't wearing a hat or gloves, and his coat wasn't so reliable either. The bus driver didn't hesitate. He knew exactly what to do next. Selflessly, John, therefore, took his own gloves off and gave them to the boy. He also reassured the 6-year-old that it would be okay. The army vet then continued to drive to the end of his usual school route, but that would not be the end of his kindness. He had more planned for the little boy. After taking all the kids to school, John made his way to a dollar store. There, he bought things to help all kids who were cold on those harsh snowy days. He purchased 10 hats and several warm pairs of gloves. He then headed back to the school, where an administrator led him to the boy in the library. That's when John gave away the first set of gloves and a hat. And that was just the beginning. John, the bus driver, then invited all the young riders from that day's bus journey to help themselves to what they needed. Everyone was shy at first and didn't want to take anything. Then a little girl approached him and revealed she didn't have a hat. He quickly gave her the item of clothing. Other children then followed and quickly got what they needed. When John was asked by Inside Edition why he thought the boy had gone without warm clothes on such a cold day, the driver said that he wasn't sure. He suspected that his gloves were merely left at home by accident. Regardless of the reason for the child's lack of winter clothing, John had done a very good deed. And the school district wanted the world to know how much the driver cared. The school posted a post with a story on their Facebook and a photo of John himself. The post went viral and the response was overwhelmingly positive and heartwarming.